Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is Dr. William Schnoebelen coming to you again from With One Accord Ministries. And today we're going to be talking about one of the stranger doctrines that are floating around the Facebook and the internet right now. And as most people know, you can find just about any bizarre teaching, whether about the scriptures or about other, New Age or occult or cultic type ideas, if you float around the internet long enough. But this is one that is particularly being targeted to, people that believe in the scriptures. And basically, this is the doctrine. Some people who profess to be into deliverance and, know the scriptures really well, they are saying that to be a vegetarian or to teach people to be a vegetarian is a doctrine of devils. And that someone who does that is probably demon possessed. Now, as someone who's been a vegetarian for many years and who has been involved in deliverance and Bible teaching for decades, this is just ludicrous. And I just wanted, this isn't going to be a real long teaching, but I just want to address this because many people have asked about it because a lot of folks know our stand on this topic. And so we're going to just explore this from the standpoint of the Bible. So, where does this come from? Well, to a superficial student of the scriptures, I could see where some people might get this, because there is a teaching in 1 Timothy 4, which is fairly well known, but I'm going to read it to you. It's not that long. Basically, we're being told here by Paul, it says, Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times shall some depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. So now there's that term. Then this is what these people are going to do. Verse 2. Speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats, which Elohim hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. Okay, that's the scripture. And, to a superficial reading, it sounds like, well, gee, if people if teachers are commanding us to abstain from meat, that must be cultic, that must be demonic. But there's a couple of problems with this. First of all, the word there for meats is a Greek, of course, it's in Greek, and the Greek word is broma. Some of you might remember broma seltzer. It was a digestive aid many years ago, and maybe it's still on the market. I don't know. I don't use that sort of thing. But anyway, broma. This is in Strong's Concordance number 1033. This word, broma, means food. It does not mean meat. If you look at Strong's, it will say, food, that about 2 or 3 different definitions, and then finally it will say victuals or meat. So obviously the primary meaning of this word is not meat or meats in the case of this plural. We've got to understand something. The King James translators in their day, the word meat didn't mean just animal flesh. Back in those days, it also meant any kind of food. And that's why occasionally, not always, but occasionally you'll see, because obviously in the King James, different translators and translation committees were involved in different parts of the scriptures. So while we certainly believe that the KJV is inspired, still there are these things that are relating to culture, relating to the culture at the time of Jacobean England. King James. So at this time, the word meat didn't just mean animal flesh. It meant food. That's why you'll see the expression, let's sit down to meat. That didn't mean, let's just sit down and chomp into a steak. It could have meant, let's have fruit, let's have vegetables, let's have porridge, whatever. So that kind of shoots that whole thing out of the water to begin with. But the other thing I want to mention is, now speaking of ourselves, is we've done some teachings about how vegetarianism or vegan, and just to briefly explain that, a vegetarian is someone who doesn't eat anything that is like an animal. They won't eat pork or shellfish or meat, beef, pork, anything like that, really. A vegan is a more strict person who, either for health reasons or for ethical reasons and occasionally for religious reasons, they abstain from anything that came out of an animal. So they not only don't eat meat, they don't eat dairy products, they don't eat eggs. Some of them will not even take wool off of a lamb, or they won't eat honey. They won't, they won't wear leather shoes. They won't wear a leather belt or carry a leather, handbag. So these are the more extreme things. We're not talking about that. Neither our ministry is not saying this is religious. We're not saying that, if you eat meat, you're going to hell. That would kind of come under this heading that is talked about here in 1 Timothy 4. That is not what we're saying. We are saying that in this day and age, with the kind of stuff that's out there in the supermarket, it is much, much healthier to abstain from eating. We're not saying, if you eat meat, you're going to hell. No, we're not saying that. We're just saying, we're not commanding anybody. We're just saying it is probably healthier. We're going to get into that in a couple of minutes. So first of all, the word is not even the word that people think it means. It is not the word meat in the sense of a steak or a chicken breast or something like that. It means food. And what's being discussed here are people that were teaching, as many ascetic sects were in the Greco-Roman world, that you should fast and then fast some more and then fast, until you probably drop dead. That's not healthy. Fasting is wonderful, but it should be in moderation. We have an article in one of our newsletters about that. Because it does really spiritually tune you up. But like anything else, you can carry it to extremes. So anyway, that's what that's about. Now the other thing, to talk about what the Bible actually does teach, there is again the law of first mention that says, the first time something is discussed, it's probably a pretty good indication of our Creator's desires for us in understanding of the Scriptures. So, going way back to Genesis chapter 1, when he first made Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, he said this in Genesis 1:29. And Elohim said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. So originally, way back when, in a pristine condition, when our first father and mother were upon the earth in the Garden of Eden, they were told the meat for you, and again food, would be food, plant material, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, leaves, things like that. So basically a vegetarian diet. Now, so right there, that tells us something. Now, think about the design of the Creator, because Abba Father is brilliant. He does all things well. And he made us with a certain diet in mind, just like he designed certain other, like, for example, the great whales that are designed to swim through the oceans and pull in through kind of a seine or a sieve-like thing in their vast mouths. Huge amounts of these little tiny brine or krill or whatever, they're perfectly designed for what they're supposed to do. Well, in the same way, we have a certain design in the way we are made to eat by the Creator. For example, we lack the teeth of a carnivore. If you have a cat or a dog, or if you've ever seen pictures of lions or tigers, they have long canine teeth, savage-looking teeth. We don't. The point is, our teeth don't look like that. Our teeth look like the teeth of herbivores. Okay. If you look at animals that eat plants, animals that eat fruit and nuts and seeds, you will see they look remarkably like our teeth. They do not look like the teeth of a cat or a dog or a lion or a bear. Okay, secondly, we do not have the powerful neck muscles that a predator, a meat eater, would have, like to bring down game. I mean, if you've ever watched like a a mountain lion or a regular lion or whatever, they'll leap and they'll grab a deer or an antelope or whatever by the neck, and they'll kind of like that. And they obviously have incredibly strong neck muscles given them by their creator to enable them to do this. People that study this stuff out, biologists, they tell us we don't have that. And if you think about it, imagine if you were to run out into the forest and see a deer, and even in a likely event that you could run it down, can you imagine leaping and sinking your teeth into the neck of a deer and trying to bring it down so you could rip it apart and eat it? It ain't going to happen, folks. That's why over the centuries men have invented, bows and arrows and spears and guns and so on. Anyway, the other thing is our jaws work differently than do the jaws of carnivores. Carnivores' jaws only go like this, okay? Our jaws go like this. They grind from side to side, okay? Which means that they're designed to grind up nuts and seeds and stuff like that. Whereas the teeth and the jaw of a carnivore are designed to just rip and rend and tear flesh. They don't have to worry about that, the munching on things. That brings up the other thing. And this is one of the most important considerations for people that are considering diet and health. We lack the short intestinal tract that a carnivore has. For example, if you have a dog or a cat, your dog's intestinal tract, if you look at the trunk of the animal, his intestinal tract is going to be about 3 to 6 times the length of his trunk. So if you have a dog that's got a small dog that's got say a foot long trunk, his intestinal tract is going to be 3 to 6 feet. Now on the other hand, human beings have an intestinal tract that runs from 10 to 12 times the length of our trunk. In other words, from our shoulders down to our waistline. Enormous difference. Now, why does that make a difference? Well, here's the thing. Carnivores have a digestive tract, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, that's designed to put through their kill very, very fast. So it doesn't have a chance to rot and to putrefy, and I don't mean to be gross here, but this is the reality, folks, in the gut of the animal. It goes right through because it's very short. We, on the other hand, have this very coiled, tightly coiled small intestine, and then around that is this large intestine which sort of encases it, and then we have the colon and the rectum, and then out it goes. And the problem from the health perspective is if you eat a lot of meat or dairy, it's going to start getting clogged in your colon, because our colon is designed to hold on to things for a long time. That's why it's so long. It's not designed to eat meat. And that's why, and I've talked about this in other DVD recordings that I've done, but that's why many people who die of colon cancer or other forms of cancer, and they have this big belly on them, when you cut that person up, if they do an autopsy, you will find that there is pounds and pounds of impacted fecal material in their colon that has been sitting there in some cases for years, for many, many years. And imagine if you had old, decayed fecal material inside of you in a nice, warm 98.6 temperature, how foul and how toxic that's going to get over the years. So that's another conversation. I don't want to make anybody lose their appetite or anything, but this is the facts, folks. Another thing is, and I was touching on this a moment ago, a carnivore's saliva has no digestive enzymes in it. That's a reality. Our Creator did not give any digestive enzymes to put in there in the saliva of the cats or foxes or dogs or lions, because they just wolf things down. I mean, that's kind of where we get the expression, oh, you just wolf your food. We say that for somebody that kind of goes like that and eats unhealthily fast. That's not good. And that's because they don't need digestive enzymes, because they don't really chew. They just sort of rip and tear, and then down it goes. Now we need digestive enzymes because we're supposed to masticate our food. We have teeth that are designed to chew 30 times or more before we swallow, if you're doing it right. The other thing is, and this is important too, a carnivore's stomach has 10 times more hydrochloric acid in it, stomach acid in it, than do the plant-eating animals like us. I mean, if you put the stomach acid of like a lion in your stomach, you would be very, very miserable and probably very, very dead, because it would be so strong it would eat right through your stomach, and you'd bleed out probably in an hour or so. We are not, again, these animals pull the flesh in real quick. It drops into their stomach, and then it's very quickly digested with this powerful digestive juices, and then it gets secreted. That's not how we work. Our digestive enzyme, our acid is much weaker than that, because we're intended to eat things that don't rot real quickly, like an animal's flesh would. Okay, the final thing, and I don't mean to be gross here, but what about the gut response? And by that I mean, I'm not talking about literally the biological gut, but a lot of people, if they were to watch the slaughter of an animal, like maybe a hunter is cutting open a deer or whatever, they would, unless they're really into this stuff, and I know there are a lot of hunters, and many believers are hunters, and that's fine. But I'm just saying that if you're not used to that, you kind of have to get accustomed to it, because the first time or even the second or third time you see something like that, it's kind of like, some people faint when they see that. Now, that's not the response of a carnivore. I mean, if a carnivore sees a carcass of a freshly killed animal with blood gushing all over the place, they go, and they pounce on it. That's not our reaction. But in the same way, if we see a beautiful apple or a peach or a pear, yeah, that looks good to us. We have a positive response to that. If we cut it apart and you smell the aroma of the peach or the aroma of the apple, that is a positive response. Then that's not mental. That's entirely in our deep, autonomic nervous system. The sight of blood and gore makes us retch, makes us vomit. If we were a carnivore, it would make us salivate, it would make us get all excited and whatnot, just like we feel. Now, of course, obviously, the vast majority of people in this country and even in the world that eat meat, eat it cooked. And that obviously makes it more appetizing. But it still indicates how we were originally designed by the Creator. And finally, you put all that together, it pretty much shows that our design is to, eat plants. Plant-based diet. Fruits, nuts, seeds, berries, salads, things like that. Now, of course, we can always circumvent the design of the Creator. We can always, just like people that are homosexual, we're gonna go out and we're not gonna do things the way the Creator wants. We're gonna do it this way. And, that's human nature, because and I'm not comparing, of course, eating meat to being a homosexual. I'm just saying that's another example of how people will leave the path of the Creator and the way we are designed biologically and do something entirely different. Okay, the one final thing people will say when I bring up Genesis 1:10-9, they will say, but look at Noah. Look at Noah, chapter 9, after the flood. What does the Almighty say to Noah? Well, let's look in the Bible here. Starting in verse 3 of chapter 9, again, in the first verse of the chapter, he tells, go, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. In verse 3, and this is what the meat eaters will bring up, it says, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb I have given you all things. But the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood, ye shall not eat. Surely your blood of your lives will I require, at the hand of every beast will I require it. at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother, will I require the life of man. Now, I'm not going to go on and talk about murder, which is not what we're talking about here. People say, oh, well, that gives us permission now to eat meat. Well, yeah, it kind of does, but it's like a permission. It's not a commandment. He's not saying, thou shalt eat meat. Not in the way he did in Genesis 1:29. And let me explain what happened here. I mean, if any of you have ever been in a flood, even a relatively minor flood, not like the flood of the deluge of Noah's day, and you've had a garden or whatever, it's just, if the flood has gone over the garden, all the vegetables are drowned, they're all matted and sodded and just sodden and just messed. You can't eat them. They're horrible. They're rotten. Because of that, when the waters receded and, the only choice that Yahweh had was to tell Noah, go ahead and eat some of the animals that you brought with you on the ark, because he knew the future. He knew what would happen. That's why he told Noah to bring more of the clean animals than he said to bring of the unclean animals. So, he knew that would happen. But it was like a necessary evil. It wasn't like he was saying, okay, it's fine, okay to eat meat anymore. I think that's a fair interpretation of the passage. Just like for example, he permitted people like Abraham and a couple of other of the early patriarchs to have more than one wife. That's not because that was his design. Just like in the Garden of Eden, he had one man and one woman. He didn't have Adam and Eve and Mary and Carol. He just had Adam and Eve. Well, in the same way, that's the original design, but he permitted because of a variety of reasons, like Abraham. He didn't like punish Abraham for taking the concubine, but we can very easily see how badly that whole thing turned out with her son Ishmael. And down through the thousands of years, how these two races have struggled even to this very day. There's terrible internecine conflict between the sons of Ishmael and the sons of Isaac. So, I just want to put this thing to rest. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point. If you're interested in more things about health and diet, we certainly have some of those things on our website. But my main thing is to tell you this. It's not about salvation, whether or not you eat meat. That's up to you. But there is nothing in any of the scriptures that says that if you teach it's good to be a vegetarian, that you're full of the devil or you need deliverance. That is nonsense. It does not bear out in the scriptures, and the scriptures, in fact, teach something to the contrary. I mean, if that was the case, then the Almighty would be full of devils, which is ridiculously blasphemous, because he told our first ancestors to only eat plant materials. So, I hope this has put some people to rest if they were thinking, oh, well, gee, it could be demonic or something, and I've heard that it's eating vegetarian is healthy. So, I hope this has been a help. If you are enjoying these videos and you would like to share them and subscribe, that would be awesome. And also, remember, we are a faith ministry, so please pray about making a contribution to support the continuation of this work. Thank you so much, and may you be richly blessed. Shalom.